A pleasant afternoon. We meet again, and in today's segment I'm going to be looking at how to write a good speech in the Zimsec examination. Many a times people believe that speeches are only meant or to be written by people of higher authority, but I am here to remind someone out there that we all need to know how to write or how to prepare a speech. Remember, the English language equips us for the better world. Remember, English is a language that we all need to converse and be able to use it in our everyday life. So the first part is to explain what a speech is. A speech is a formal address that is delivered to an audience, and a speech seeks to inspire, educate, inform, or even persuade. A speech can serve different purposes. Speeches can be said out at different gatherings. A speech can be said out at a wedding, at a birthday party, at a funeral, at a certain project, or even at a gala. Speeches are meant to serve different purposes. So bear in mind that since a speech can be said at any place, it serves different purposes. Therefore, the moment you hear about your speech, ask yourself, what kind of a speech am I required to write? Who is going to be my audience? Remember, the audience are the people who are going to be listening to your speech. So the moment you know who are going to be your audience, it becomes easier for you. Writing a speech is something that we must all be enjoying. I know for many people, they cannot say out a speech in front of people. Some might start shivering, some might tremble, some might start sweating. So writing a speech should be something that is easy. It should be mastered by everyone. So when you're writing a speech in the exam, remember that a speech, like any other piece of writing, it requires an introduction. This speech comes under the guided composition. And it being under the guided composition, remember, notes are always given to you. Those notes are a must. You need to be including them in your speech. So in this case, this means that in the exam, you are given the topic of your speech. Once you've been provided with the topic of your speech, then life becomes easier for you. You know what is on hand. What are you required to be producing in the exam? So basically in the exam, the examiner always gives you the topic. Write a speech about respect. Write a speech about this and that. You are always told in the exam. Remember, you don't have a choice. You cannot come up with your own speech topic in the exam. The examiner always gives you the guideline of coming up with a good speech. So when you are writing a speech, bear in mind that the introduction has to be something that is catchy. Remember, you are writing your speech to be read to the audience. So remember, you are after pleasing the people who will be listening to your speech. So in the introduction, there are salutations. We always include salutations. My name is Tafadwa Kunashe. I am here in front of you to deliver a speech on go on and quote the topic of your speech. Talking about the introduction. Like any piece of writing in English, a speech requires an introduction. In the introduction, this is where you are going to be making an impact on your audience. Remember, you are there to be sending out a message to your audience. So one way or the other, I don't want you to end up confusing the audience. Your job is to please the audience. Remember, a good speech gains followers. So make sure that in your introduction, this is where you are going to be grabbing the attention of your audience. Please don't make your audience doze off simply because you are saying something that is boring and confusing at the same time. So in the introduction, don't waste the opening of your introduction. So apart from introducing yourself, you then go on to the order of the day. Why are you writing that speech? Make sure you spell it out in big letters. The reason of you reading out that speech to the audience, you have to say out the purpose of your speech. I am here to educate one another on the issues or on the effects of degradation in our environment. Make sure you do that to the audience. Remember, you are there to be pleasing the audience. You don't need to be pleasing yourself, but you are after pleasing the audience. So make sure you do the right things in the introduction. So after highlighting the agenda of your speech, you then move on to the body of your speech. In the body of your speech, this is where more details are going to be written. Remember, this speech is under the guided composition. The examiner gives you some notes to be including in your piece of writing. So this means that most of the given points have to be included in the body of your speech. Including the given points by the examiner means that you have to be expanding the given notes. Those notes are always given to you in point form by the examiner. And remember, the exam is meant to be passed by you. So this means that you have to learn how to expand those given points in the exam. Expanding the given points in the exam means quoting relevant examples as well. So the moment you master how to expand those notes in the exam, you'll be home and dry. So writing a speech is not something that we must all be scared of. The moment you hear of a speech, just smile and tell yourself that I can conquer this. So writing a speech should be mastered correctly. Talking of writing a good speech, you need to be using the correct vocabulary. When you're writing a speech, make sure you produce correct spellings, correct grammar. Please don't overlook some of these things. In the body, this is where you have to persuade the examiner that you know your job. And remember, in the body, this is where you have to persuade your audience that you know the message you are trying to send across to them. Don't overlook some of these things. Students, I know for most of you, they are in a hurry to finish off writing a speech. But please take note of this. There are these small things that counts a lot. So in the body, this is where you have to persuade the audience. What is your message? What do you want them to be taking home? What do you want them to ponder over? What do you want them to think? What do you want them to do? Maybe you want to motivate them to start something in the society. Maybe you want to motivate them to start or to exercise caution over something that they've been doing. What is it that you want them to do? So remember, your job is to persuade, inform, or educate your audience. And remember, this is done in the body of your speech. Once you do this, you would have done justice to your speech. So a good speech is one that is tailor-made to the audience. The moment you know your audience, you know what to say to them. If you are talking to doctors and nurses, there is this certain terminology they understand. There is no need for you to be explaining to them what a thermometer is, what temperature is. There is no need for that, because you are speaking to doctors and nurses. They already know of this terminology. If you are addressing maybe some police officers, constables, they already know what a docket is, what an eyewitness is, what a convict is. They already know these terms. There is no need for you to be explaining that to them. So the moment you know your audience, it then becomes easier for you in using the right registers. Remember, registers is all about using the right register at the right place. You might be in a church, you might be at a wedding, you might be at a party. There are certain registers that can be used. So when you are writing your speech, just bear in mind that from time to time, ask yourself, am I still using the right tone? The moment you use the right tone, it means that you can address your audience correctly. If you are speaking to a group of students, there is certain language that they do understand more. Unlike when you are speaking to some people in the church, or when you are speaking to some old people in the community, there is certain language that appeals more to them. So the moment you know your audience, then it becomes easier for you in coming up with a good speech. Still under the body of the speech, you have to focus on what you want your audience to know and how you want them to feel after the end of your speech. Remember, in the body of your speech, this is where you have to convince your audience about the message you have to convey to them. If you want them to be rallying behind you after the speech, make sure that you do justice in the body of your speech. So, apart from justifying the purpose of your speech, whenever you are writing your speech, always ask yourself, am I still in line with the demands of the question? Some of you students tend to go astray when writing the exam. Always stick to the demands of the question. So, a speech should be something that we all favor writing when it comes to paper one. Remember, when you are writing a speech, you are allowed to be viewing your own opinions as well. So when you write your speech, make sure that you blend the speech with your own opinion. Remember, you are there to interest the audience. So it's all after interesting the audience. You want to please your audience. And you want the audience at the end of the day to be taking home something. What message do you want them to take home? What is it that you want them to know more? What is it that you want them to learn? What is it that you want them to be doing after listening to your speech? So in the body of the speech, you are also allowed to air your own views. This is not a crime. So students, feel free to be airing your own views when writing your own speech. Apart from that, remember, the points are given by the examiner. Those points are given in point forms and they might range from 8 to 10 points. One secret is that you must never mix those ideas. Each own idea must be written on its own paragraph. Never mix those ideas. Use each paragraph for each new point. I hope I'm making sense to someone out there. So once you have seen that you have done justice to your body of the speech, you then move on to the conclusion of your speech. In the conclusion, this is where you are now concluding your speech. You need to be thanking your audience for having been listening to you. I want to thank you all for your precious time. Remember, we need to be thanking our audience. Just imagine, maybe you've been reading your speech for the last 45 minutes and they've all been listening to you. So you need to be thanking them. Remember, in the exam, you will be writing down your speech. So even when writing your speech, you still need to be thanking your audience. These are some of the things we must not overlook. Everyone needs to be thanked. Thank you all for coming and listening to my speech. And then apart from that, maybe there is one thing I forgot to tell you. Repetition is also allowed when you are writing your speech. Repetition of keywords is allowed. Normally, there is that message or there is that phrase that you want the audience to remember. So repetition will help you so that the moment you repeat a word over and over, by the time you finish your speech, the audience will totally remember what you said from the beginning. So repetition is allowed. So after that, you then move on to conclude your speech. In the conclusion of your speech, apart from thanking the audience, you might as well want to end off the speech with the important terms of your speech. What is it that you want the audience to remember? You can do that in your conclusion of the speech. So remember, a speech is something we all need in our daily lives. It can be at any function. Speeches are always read and speeches will always be written by anyone. So I'm sure by the end of this segment, we are all going to be masters in writing speeches. I can do it and you can also do it. Thank you for following, and in my next segment I'm going to be showing you how to write a good speech. I'm going to be answering a Zimsec question. Thank you for following. Until next time, take good care of yourself and don't forget to be practicing this language. We need the English language. It's a must. If I did it, you can also do it.